If you wondered why we were 9 minutes late, kids, it's live television. I did not push the live button on time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 99th episode of the longest tenured Denver Nuggets spin-off podcast in the world. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and let me remind you to smash that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube, and then download the show on the podcast app too. We are in a war against the evil corporations and the Illuminati, so we are working the system. If you want to support the show more directly, you can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/MiroslavCuk. So the draft nights are behind us. It was the last push from the season that has ended to damage my health by not sleeping just a bit more. The first night of the draft was a pretty boring one for me. The only thing I was monitoring was which of the prospects from last week's show would be drafted way before Denver's range. Indiana took Kel'el Ware at 15, and Jalen Tyson got picked 20th by the Cavs. But then, when it was time to reveal the 22nd pick by the Phoenix Suns, a trade happened. Calvin Booth took the 28th pick, added the 57th pick, and two more future second-round picks, and sent all of them to Phoenix for a chance to pick at 22. You know the rest. The worst-kept secret in the history of Nuggets basketball came out. DaRon Holmes, a 6'9" big man from Dayton, is a Denver Nugget. Everybody was really excited about that pick, but then Calvin Booth spoke to the media to almost announce the Nuggets are not interested in going into the bidding war and going over the second apron to keep their starter, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He also mentioned they are confident they would be okay without him, and it is a tough pill to swallow, and we'll expand on that on this show. Next, we heard that the Nuggets are working on extending Jamal Murray, preparing almost $210 million for 4 years, starting in 2025. That is, of course, something they have to do to make sure there will be no risk of him leaving next summer. At the same time, this means Jamal is getting paid like he was his 2023 playoff self throughout this ongoing contract. So it would be nice to get a lot more consistency from him going forward. Otherwise, his contract will be tradable as soon as next summer, and I hope he'll be reminded of that by more important people than myself. Next, Reggie Jackson is gone. After picking his player option for a bit more than $5 million for this season, Calvin Booth made sure he wouldn't be playing over Jalen Pickett anymore. So he attached almost all of the remaining tradable picks to salary dump him and send to Charlotte. That was a steep price, but also a reminder of how non-realistic all of the Reggie plus Zeke plus a pick fake trades were in the past several weeks. Taking all of my bad salary plus a pick for a good player of yours usually does not work. I'm sure the Nuggets would love to get off Zeke's contract too, for salary cap purposes, but I don't think they have enough left in the chamber to sweeten that sour pickle before the training camp. To help me articulate my draft takeaways, the off-season moves that have already happened, and some moves that are going to happen in the next couple of days, I'm calling up some reinforcements. First, some call him Connor, some call him Chill, and some even call him Child Ducey. You know him on Twitter as Will Barton Union Leader. It's Connor Ducey. Welcome back to the show, Deuce, for the second time.
Miro, it's great to see you.
I didn't mean to say this is your second time on Serbian Corner. This is actually our second try of recording this show because we did all of this already 10 minutes ago. So, yeah, I'm sorry for that.
Well, like I said, it's great to see you brought out to the States. I know that you're a pick and stash, a draft and stash. So the dream is alive.
The dream is alive, and it was alive for Petar Korneli as well. He even got that two-way contract at some point. So it's something that would work for me perfectly, like two-way two-way contract money is real money still. So yeah. So did you know that Will Barton had to change his name to Will Barton when he was playing for CSKA in Moscow?
Since I watched every single game, as well as every single game of him in the Puerto Rican League that he is currently playing in, that I just found that out via Twitter or via Google. But yes, I did know that.
Yeah. Well, this is how the announcers called him. But actually, only the Greeks are going to mandate for you to change your name to play for their national team or to actually have a Greek citizenship. Ugo Adetokounmpo had to change his name to Yanis. Peja Stojakovic even had a Greek first name as well because he was also a Greek citizen at one point. Okay, so how do you feel about the fact that DaRon Holmes shares the nickname with you, Deuce?
We can confirm 100% that his friends call him a cool nickname. That's what we can confirm 100%. There's been a lot of chit chat about DaRon Holmes, and hearing the nickname locked him in as one of my guys for sure.
Yeah, you know he has a cool nickname, and he's probably pretty good looking too. So yeah, it's a good pick. It
goes without saying.
Of course, you cannot be called Deuce if you don't have the qualities needed for that. Okay, so next, he is a wonderful wildlife photographer. We really could have used on that hiking trip I took with Adam and Brandon. So we had to settle with Kale for our photographic needs. By the way, Kale, I'm still waiting for those photos, you know. He is also a great presence on the Nuggets Twitter and a former contributor to BSN Denver and Roundball Mining Company. It's Johnny Domenico. Welcome back to the show, Johnny.
Thank you, Miroslav. Great to see you again. And to be fair, in Kale's defense, the editing part of taking photos is the worst part of the whole thing. So I can feel him there.
Okay, so I guess these 2+ months he had weren't enough, right?
Okay, well, you know, maybe not 2 months.
Wonderful backdrop behind you of Colorado nature. I'm really envious.
Thank you. Yeah, I had to stay on brand here. Hopefully some of the deer will cross behind me that come through the yard, but it's pretty nice out today up here in Conifer, so I had to show it off.
I'm really jealous of your first name. It's like one of the best first names ever. And how did you feel when Vaya con Dios made the everlasting hit, Johnny? Do you know that song?
I don't know if I know that one, which is interesting because I feel like I've heard almost every song with Johnny in it, and then there's quite a few of them.
Flo is gonna murder me because my French is horrible, but it goes like Johnny, si tu étais plus galant, Johnny, je t'aimerais tout le temps.
So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, it's a wonderful song. It's a Belgium.
I love it already. Yeah,
it's a group from Belgium, and they sing like in 5 different languages. It's a wonderful. Well, I don't think they're still active. They used to perform in like 80s and 90s.
Well, okay. I support them.
Yeah, you should. Yep, Last but not least, he is a host of the Box State Boys podcast and also the host of the Talking BS YouTube channel, where he did the off-season preview of all NBA teams in the past few weeks. Make sure to go and check that out. He is also a Denver Nuggets diehard, but most of all, a swell guy. It's Steven Zamora. Welcome back to the show, Steve. You are muted.
Sorry. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for having me again, Miroslav. Appreciate you, my man. Always a pleasure to be here on Serbian Corner, my man.
So tell me, Steve, off the top of your head, how many teams in the West do you expect to be better than last year? Not better than the Nuggets, just better than what they were this season. Because I'm not sure the Nuggets are going to progress in the right direction this next season. I might be wrong, but how many teams do you expect? I mean, we always say that the West is a nightmare to go through. How many teams do you expect to be better than this season?
So I think an easy answer would definitely be Memphis is probably going to be better. They had so much bad injury luck last year. They're definitely going to be better next year. I'm really high on Houston. I think Houston's going to be really good next year. They're one of my favorite teams, so I'm really high on them. I made a prediction on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, actually, like the day I was doing their offseason preview, and just projecting all the stuff that they had going forward. I was like, man, I think these guys are going to be a top 4 team in the West next year. There's a handful of teams, but also on the same spectrum though. I mean, teams like LA, I don't think are going to be as good as they were. Golden State, might collapse. A lot of the older teams are probably going to fall off here. So, there's room for optimism.
So, Deuce, do you have another team you expect to be better next season?
I think Thunder, the easy answer. And I like the Murray trade for New Orleans. I mean, I think there's a lot of talent on that team, and I just think guard was the weakness for them. So even though I'm not a huge DeJounte Murray fan, I do really like that move for them. So I think those are 2 teams just in the last week that have gotten better.
Johnny, we've heard Memphis, we've heard Houston, we've heard Thunder, and we've heard Pelicans. Any other teams you expect to be better? Maybe Dallas?
I'll be interested with the Mavericks. Now they saw success and they're probably hungry for more. I know they had a lot of bad injury luck last year too, so I think they're going to be fighting for a top spot. I think Oklahoma City was another one. Obviously, they were great last year in the regular season, but now with the experience, I think, I'll feel like they're more of a threat this year than even though they were the 1 seed. I never really felt like they were a huge threat last year. So I'd agree with them too.
Yeah. And we've already seen a couple of really good players coming from East to West. One is DeJounte Murray. The other one is Alex Caruso coming to the Thunder. So yeah, come on, guys, please just stop getting great players out West, like depleting East even more so. Like what the hell? Okay, let's take one short break and then we'll start to talk about what happened. When was it? 2 days ago, right? Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back. So let's start with DaRon Holmes. What are your first impressions about the way Calvin Booth acquired him, from telegraphing his pick weeks ahead to trading a big number of relatively worthless picks to move up in the draft? Let's start with Deuce.
Yeah, Booth is interesting because he's very, I think, open, which I think is really endearing from players. Because we don't necessarily get it a lot from a GM. I also enjoy it, but it's not necessarily a strength in regards to that position. So, I thought it was odd how open it was, but I just, from his prior things, whether it was the KOC interview or even how he talks about KCP, it aligns with how he carries himself as a GM. That being said, I agreed with what the guys said on the podcast this week, where it's like, hey, he wanted his guy, and they ended up getting the guy. I don't think the cost was large. I think when you mix it in with how they've managed their assets otherwise, that's where we get into conversation about the cost and just, kind of slowly dwindling on assets to use. But for me, I said a month ago, I said 2 months ago, if you're going to use this pick, it needs to be on a big, in my opinion. So I'm not the best person to talk about a draft prospect, but taking a big there, I thought was fantastic. And I think there's a question, hearing Booth say he's a 4, kind of looking at his size, I think, if you'd asked me, I would have said I want a center. So I think when it comes to quality on the court next year, I think it's pretty likely we're going to be in the same situation we were in this year, to be honest, with DaRon Holmes. That being said, the upside of his ability to play with Jokic is, the perfect fit of what you want from a backup big, as opposed to just a center that sets picks and, rolls towards the rim. So I think quality on the court next year from that position is still going to be a big question, but I love that they drafted a big, and I'm super intrigued by, I think he can play next to Jokic in the future. So I think that's really exciting.
So, Johnny, it's obvious that Calvin got the guy he wanted. he said so to the whole world, like 2 weeks up front. Uh, I guess we should feel good about it. Like we got our guy, but is this like a trend to be worried about, or do you find it fresh?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's nice to kind of know, but yeah, it could be scary down the line. I mean, I always have the memories of OG. You know, everyone knew the Nuggets wanted OG, and he got picked one pick before they could get him, and traded back and really played with fire in that draft. And so, you know, that's the risk that you run. If everybody knows who you're going for, someone could jump right ahead of you to snag him. And I know this time around, giving up future seconds doesn't bother me at all. He seems like he's a great fit. The versatility of what you can do in the non-Jokic minutes went up with picking him up. But yeah, long term, you know, maybe it's a rope-a-dope. Maybe long term he'll set up people thinking he's going to take someone and go a different direction. But you know, I can't blame him. I think we all get our draft prep from CT Fazio, and he let us know this is the direction we were going right from the start. So hey, I can't blame Calvin Booth for that too. You know,
He told us which first round pick we're gonna get for the third season in a row. Like what? Like what?
Crazy run. Crazy.
Crazy run. Are we sure there are guys in the Nuggets front office that are better than CD Fazio or better than Jake Coyne with the CBA stuff? Like, just hire those two guys. Like, what?
Yeah.
What are we
save
doing?
a lot of money that way. Yeah, exactly.
Probably, yeah, probably. I mean, the Kronkers would be interested in that. So, Steve, let me ask you. I don't remember when was the last time the Nuggets traded up in the draft. That was like a really fresh, really nice surprise to me. Is it something to be pumped about, or is it just like we had no plan B, we needed to execute this right?
Yeah, I think it was smart. You know, I mean, like Deuce was saying, like, you know, Booth kind of telegraphed this whole thing from the get-go. You know, Nuggets Nation itself has been pining for DaRon Holmes this entire time. CT Fazio, you know, been talking about it forever. And like, if you just look at it, he's such a good fit next to, you know, Jokic and, you know, backing up AG, or, you know, just as in that big man rotation. I think it's just such a good fit that, you know, it was pretty easy to see that a move like that would have been smart. Like, I think we referenced the OG Anunoby trade or pick from a few years ago. You know, I personally feel like that we kind of did that same thing to Milwaukee. When we picked 22nd, I feel like DaRon Holmes could have been a really good Bobby Portis replacement, or, you know, we heard that Tim Conley could have picked him at 27 as well. So I think it was smart for them to go up, get ahead of Milwaukee specifically. I mean, if you look at who Milwaukee picked at 23, it's a guy who, you know, wasn't even a second round pick on a lot of people's big boards. So I think they kind of did the same thing. They kind of panicked and they went and got somebody else that, you know, they just took a big swing and stuff. So I think it was smart. I think, you know, like you said, when Tim Conley was in charge, we didn't make moves like that. We didn't, you know, and it ended up biting us a lot of the times. So I think, you know, Calvin Booth learned from that, and, you know, he's learning, like, you just got to be aggressive. And if he's really good at, like, identifying the guys that he likes and going and getting them.
So, Deuce, you mentioned that Calvin Booth said that DaRon is a 4. He is a power forward. This is what he's going to play in the NBA. And also, his versatility will allow him to play next to Joker, next to AG, next to Michael Porter at the 4, like a 4-5 small ball combo. But how optimistic are you that he's going to be in the rotation from game 1, and also on whether he's going to be a positive impact of the bench, you know, from the get-go?
I don't think truthfully, not super optimistic. I'd probably say about a 5 out of 10. I think depth chart right now would be backup 4 Holmes, backup 5 Zeke, just based on the roster that as it stands right now. So I think he's going to get that opportunity, but I do just think you look at the last 7, 10 years of Nuggets basketball, we probably see him playing some minutes here and there in 2024, and then he either earns his spot and gets more minutes. But again, I mean, it kind of seems like the type of player he isn't necessarily a plug-in 5 at the NBA level. I think that's what we're going to kind of have to see at Summer League maybe, and just see what it looks like. But I do just think he has the energy that can help the second unit and kind of like the ball skills, where he's just kind of like a more gifted basketball player than Zeke, where I do think there is certainly a chance he's, playing 10 to 15 minutes right away. I think just him being kind of a 4-5 tweener perhaps leaves that a little bit more questionable to me if he's plug and play.
Johnny, do you agree that path for DaRon is cleared enough for him to like start in the rotation from game 1?
Yeah, I don't know that it's fully clear. I do think that just kind of the way the Nuggets have operated, Zeke will probably get that shot first. He's put in the time and has the experience, but with the history we know with Zeke too, if he is on the roster still at that point, we don't know he's going to be healthy. The minute he starts showing any promise, it seems like some injury comes up, and now the fact that there is somebody with upside, just kind of waiting there for that opportunity. I think even if it isn't game 1 to be in the rotation, I think there's a very clear path for those minutes to be there. And especially with Malone, once he kind of, was able to think back on the season, almost recognizing that he played the starters too much, and that people were worn down by the time the playoffs got there. I think having more options is just going to help with that. And I think that it will be exciting to see, because it seems like from everything I've seen, he has the ability to play the 5. I think, whether it translates at the speed and the size of the NBA, coming from a smaller, college team, is going to be interesting. You never really know how that's going to go, but it seems like at least the skills and the IQ he has are going to translate pretty easily.
So, Steve, you're a grinder. I'm sure you've watched a bunch of video on Holmes. Do you think he can be a positive impact of the bench from the get-go?
Yeah, I think he can. I think we have a bit of a logjam, between Vlatko coming back, and Peyton Watson playing some 4 and stuff like that. But I think Holmes was probably the best option, as far as just like being able to play 4 and 5. If we're going up against like bigger matchups, so he's 6'8" and 3/4 without shoes, so about 6'10" with shoes on. 236 pounds, I think, is what he was measured at. So he's got some size to him. He's definitely going to have to fill out a little bit more. But he was 38% from 3 last year, so he could definitely stretch the floor. He has a 7-foot wingspan, so he's, positive wingspan, averaged 2 blocks a game last year. So he could be a rim deterrent on one side. He could hit threes on the other side. I think that fits really well next to Jokic. And if we're going against a big team like a Minnesota, you can play him at the 4 next to Jokic, and that's a really good, that could be really positive. If you're going against a smaller team like an OKC or something, you can run him at the 5 and bring in Vlatko and put him at the 4, and play 5 out. Like, there's just a lot of optionality with Holmes. Like, when I first saw him, I think I kind of started the whole he's Zeke Najee again hype train, because I was not high on him. I did not have him super high on my board. And then just the more I looked into him and the more I watched, like, I just kept loving him more and more. So, like, I went from complete, like, I think he was just Zeke Najee again, to I think he could be a really big role player on our team next year.
I agree. The versatility is on both sides of the court is what interests me the most. I like to see him doing like little things on offense, screening, uh, stuff like that. It's always tough to predict what a rookie is going to look like when he starts playing against much stronger, much bigger guys than what he's used to in the NCAA. But yeah, I agree, and I'm really high on Calvin Booth as a talent evaluator. I think that's his uh, the strongest part of his GM personality, and I'm really confident in his judgment here. He obviously got his guy, so hopefully we can expect something similar to Christian Brown's rookie season, which means playing practically from the get go, earning a bit more minutes during the season, and then actually being in the playoff rotations. Maybe not in every game, but something to monitor. So I'm really optimistic about that part. The Nuggets are going to lose several guys this season, and we know we got this one back. So I'm really optimistic about that part. Let's take one more short break, and then we'll go and talk about a guy we might lose as early as tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back. Let's talk KCP. So, Johnny, let's start with you this time. On a scale of 1 to 5, how important do you think it is for the Nuggets to keep KCP no matter what the cost is?
That's a really good question. I think it's really, I mean, it was underrated how important he was to both the offense and defense of the Nuggets, and how effective the starting five was. The fact that he was a knockdown corner 3-point shooter meant there was no one you could play off of. That everyone was dangerous on offense for the Nuggets. And the point of attack defense is something that was awful for years and years on the Nuggets, and getting KCP finally shored that up. And so I think that elite level on both sides is going to be hard to replicate. Without KCP, I don't think there's an obvious answer to maintain that high level of play. That being said, I think, the cost of bringing him back is going to hurt in other areas. And we already saw how not having a bench can hurt both in the regular season, wearing down starters, as well as in the playoffs, with the way things ended this year. So I think you have to think long term. And part two of that is, if you're going to have to give out a 4-year contract, he's 32 years old and is a guy that relies a lot on athleticism, especially on the defensive end, to be able to keep up with those quick guards. So 1 to 5, I think from an immediate cost, it's, I would say we got to have him. He's the one that keeps us as an elite offense and defense. But when you have to think about the long term and how it affects the team's ability to go out and get other people, I think, there are things you can do. There are ways you can replace part of what he does and make it up in other ways. So I'd say right now I'd put it about a 3 out of 5, kind of thinking about his age and the flexibility you lose if you pay whatever the market value is. But man, I've been a huge KCP guy. I was pushing for him for Mr. Nugget, even though I knew it was a losing cause all along, just because of all the little things that he does. But I do think there's ways to replace some of what he does, and you can work around it to maintain that flexibility.
So, Steve, on one side, we have KCP, who is practically perfect for the Nuggets. He is a guy that does all the little things on the outside to protect the back line, to protect Nikola Jokic behind him, and make sure not too many guys are going around the screens and having advantage over there. On the other side, we have the second apron, and we are mostly listening about the consequences of second apron in regarding to team building, to trade limitations, to limitations on free agents, not being able to buy picks with cash, stuff like that. But there's this other part of second apron, and it's the cost of it. Like the money is huge. I just saw the projected value of salaries for Phoenix Suns for next season. So not this season that's coming up, but for the 2025-2026, and that's like $500 and more million with added tax. Like the luxury tax is like 150% of what the whole salary for the Phoenix Suns is going to be projected right now.
And that team sucks.
And that team sucks. Like that team just exited in the first round, and you know what? They're bringing everybody back on bigger contracts. So, Steve, how would you weigh between these two things? KCP's importance and dire consequences that team might face because of that contract.
So I kind of have an agenda with this whole thing, because
me too.
I've seen both sides of the argument. I am a 100%. You have to bring KCP back. I am 100% on that train. So I broke this down. If you don't mind me breaking this down real quick. So the second apron is $190 million. After dumping Reggie's salary and drafting DaRon Holmes, as of right now, we are sitting at $188 million. If we were to bring KCP back, KCP is looking at a contract from Orlando reportedly for $25 million a year for the span of 2 years. In my opinion, and I went on the What's in the Game podcast about a week ago, and I proposed that Denver should offer KCP a front-loaded contract where we offer $25 million on the first year, so that he initially gets his $10 million pay bump, and then it declines by 5% every year, so it would go down to 23.75, and then 21 or 22.5 on year 3. And if you really wanted to, for the extra security, you could do a team option 4th year, just to give KCP some more options, or another year potentially, if he's still playing that well. And I think that's a perfectly fair contract. I think it declines with his age. I think it gives him his pay bump. I think all sides are happy in that scenario. He gets to stay in Denver. He gets to stay with Jokic. He mentioned when he first got here that he's tired of moving everywhere, that his family is tired of moving everywhere. And like you guys were saying, he's the perfect piece. You can go and, I've seen guys mention Klay Thompson, which I don't think is realistic at all. And I've been arguing with people on Twitter all day about that. But I don't think that's realistic. But even if we do, Klay Thompson isn't half the defender KCP is anymore. He could bring it on the offensive end and hit those corner threes, but then you're slacking on the defensive side. You can bring a guy like, DeAnthony Melton, who I've seen proposed as well, and he's not the shooter that KCP is. And frankly, I don't think he's as good of a defender either. So, I think you bring KCP back, you have that asset, you face the luxury tax, because the whole reason the luxury tax and the second apron exist is for teams who are contending. You have Nikola Jokic in his prime right now. You have to take advantage of it, and you have to help him get his legacy solidified, help him out, help him win championships. KCP is the perfect guy for this, and there's no reason to let him walk. If anything, you can take that contract and you can split it later on if you really have to.
So, Deuce, how would you feel if the Nuggets, I don't want to say lose KCP, let KCP go, because they would not lose him. They can keep him.
They can give him whatever.
I'm sure he wants to keep playing for the championship level. team. I'm sure he enjoys his role here. And I mean, he's getting the pay bump he wouldn't have got like in Washington or in Detroit or wherever, Lakers. He got it because of playing with Nikola Jokic, playing in the best, or we thought the best starting five in the league. How would you feel about it when you put everything into perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'm upset about it because I think everything points to him leaving. I mean, at this point, I think, we can hope he's going to be back, but I think the writing's been getting put on the wall. And I mean, I'm upset about it. I align with Steve about it. I mean, I think so if I take that and, kind of put myself in the Nugget shoes and try to spin this, I don't just want to be negative about it. If there's a starter you can afford to lose, it's KCP. Obviously, the last 2 years, Booth's drafted shooting guards. So for me, losing KCP is essentially taking a step back this season. Is that acceptable? I don't know. Probably not. But I can understand the risk in, hey, we're going to pay AG next summer. We're paying Jamal Murray a max. If we sign KCP for a 4-100 deal, which I would do, by the way, I think that's fair market value. And he tears his ACL this year, God forbid, and we're stuck on that contract. Can we not sign AG? I don't know. I'm not Jake Coyne, so I don't know. But I can understand the risk the organization is taking. It's easy for me to say, sign KCP for 100, trade him next summer. Sign Christian Brown. He's the starter. Easy for me to say that. That's what I would do if I was writing it down on paper. So yeah, it is upsetting though, because I think it's a step back. There's just no two ways around that. And I actually don't hate Christian as a starter. I think he's going to be fine. I'm high on Watson. I'm high on Strawther, but it's just end of the day, we were thin last year. I mean, we were a bad bench 6 through 10 last year, and you lose a starter for no value, it hurts your team more. There's just no way around that. And you're all in on 3 first-round picks. There's no guarantee they're going to be good. So that's just the position Booth believes in, and some of it I align with. But the reality is, we're all along for this ride, and there's some risk in betting on these young guys.
So, Johnny, they've lost Bruce Brown last year. They couldn't do anything about it, and they took a step back. Like, it's obvious they weren't as good as the season they won a championship in. And this would be, I don't know if I can say this would be a bigger blow to them comparing to Bruce Brown's, because KCP is a starter, because I do agree that Christian Brown actually has a lot of qualities of stepping into that starting lineup. His net rating with Nikola Jokic is amazing. That, of course, has a bit to do with who they have been playing against, not the starters, but the mixed lineups. But on the other hand, now you don't have Christian Brown on the bench. Now you have Julian Strawther or whoever else is going to be there. Is that the bigger drop off there? And is there anything the Nuggets could realistically do to compensate for losing that quality in the 2-guard position?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to think of, what's possible to do, because, I mean, the reality of it is KCP might go somewhere else. And, when you find a starting 5 as good as what the Nuggets have had, you want to keep it together. But, the truth is he may go somewhere else. We got to find that fill in. And I do think, Strawther, we don't really know fully what we have in Julian Strawther yet. I think that's another piece with this past year, both Jamal and Strawther getting hurt for a good chunk of the season. The backcourt was really taxed. Reggie wasn't supposed to play as much as he played during the regular season. They didn't really expect him to have as big of a role as he did, in part because they thought they were going to get more from both Jamal and Julian Strawther. So I think there's a lot of unknown just because of the health of the backcourt. But obviously being more thin there with health concerns for both of those guys isn't ideal either. I think, obviously there's the Klay rumors. I see we're already tracking Klay. We've seen photos of him in Boulder. I see in the chat we've got the Cherry Creek Reservoir boating out there. So we're on Klay watch. I think we're all coping with grasping at anything right now if KCP goes somewhere else. But I think what popped into my head when those rumors started, and it has a little to do with Klay, but really just rethinking the whole thing. If Christian Braun becomes a starter, rather than trying to replace what Christian Braun does. Hey, I like that. Billy B. I know Billy. If Christian Braun becomes a starter, instead of trying to get a new Christian Braun, I mean, maybe you do go with someone who brings more offense. The bench has a lot of versatile defenders now. Peyton Watson, and I know they've even talked about Watson being more of a 2-3. And Strawther plays a little like Jamal, kind of as that combo guard, point guard too. Maybe you do find somebody who can bring more offense to that unit, especially with Holmes being a little more versatile offensively. And maybe we don't feel like the bench is just going to go scoreless for 5-minute stretches when Jokic is off the court too. So, I think in my mind, you can't just keep trying to do the same thing over and over. If you lose a player like KCP, you got to think, what are the opportunities now that the dynamic has changed?
So, Steve, we already mentioned KCP is perfect for this starting lineup, but on the other hand, he is the only guy the Nuggets can realistically have on a 20 or 25 million per year contract. Like, if they lose him, they cannot sign anybody else outside of their current roster to that big of a deal, that big of a chunk of money. So is this second part even the bigger problem than his actual perfect fit on the Nuggets?
I think that's a really big part of it. We're talking about the Klay watch thing. Klay declined a $48 million contract from Golden State, midway through the season last year, because he wants more years. And I think he wants more money than that too. So to think that Klay Thompson is going to come to Denver for a 2-year deal, making $10 million just to stick it to the Warriors, I just don't believe that's a possible thing. Like Reggie Jackson was who we signed with that taxpayer mid-level exception, and we had to dump him at the end of the day with 3 second-round picks to get off of it. So those are just the type of valuable guys that you're going to get for that $5 million taxpayer mid-level exception if you let KCP walk. So, you might get lucky and get like an 8th or 7th guy on the bench for that much money, and, you lose a starter. So to me, in the immediate, it just doesn't make much sense to let him walk and then try to replace that with a $5 million contract somewhere else.
Deuce, any closing thoughts on the KCP conundrum?
I think the Nuggets are a worse team without him. It would be wonderful if they get him back. I just said in the chat, there's a chance Philly gets Paul George. He just declined his player option. He's an unrestricted free agent. There's a chance Orlando doesn't want to sign KCP. I don't love that fit for Orlando anyway. They're like an elite defense. Their problem is they can't score. So there's still a chance the Nuggets get lucky and can, not have to give KCP a 4 for 100 type deal to keep him. But yeah, I think it's fair for us to be stressed that it's a tough pill to swallow that he won't be back if that's what the organization is, preparing for, because he's an excellent fit. The Nuggets need an elite defender in that position based on their starting lineup.
I see someone just mentioned the sad faces. I just wanted a brief fairy tale ending. If we do lose him, Gary Harris comes back rejuvenated to Denver, helps replace KCP, gets his championship with Jokic. That's my fairy tale ending. If KCP's
Gary Harris comes from 2018, and
what about Will Barton?
Monte Morris, let's do it.
We need a hooper. We need a hooper on
Yep,
the team.
let's do it.
You know how you have those city jerseys you get to wear like 4 times a year or whatever. Like imagine if you could have like a city unit of players you can use from time to time, like get all of those guys, Will and Gary and Monte, and just like play them every other Monday or something like that. That would be pretty cool. We'll workshop it. We have the whole summer to propose new stuff to Adam Silver. Okay, before we take the last break, I just wanted to ask you guys about Jamal's extension. So it is 209 million for 4 years. I believe he can sign it on July 6th, right? Something like that. This is when he can sign it. I mean, it's obviously over. Like they already agreed on it. But if you were the Nuggets front office, would you try to do something different? Like, would you try to get a more team-friendly deal with Jamal, considering his last 4 seasons, let's call it like that? Or would you maybe postpone the extension talk for later in the season when he proves he deserves it going forward? Or is it just too much of a risk? Whoever wants to start.
Sign the paper, baby. I mean, stick to our roots, believe in our guys. Whether we like it or not, Jamal's a great partner for Jokic, even if you're in the business of trading him. Easier said than done to get an upgrade. So sign the paper, believe in your guy. That's my take.
Yeah.
Johnny? Sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think there's too much time has been put into that relationship with Jokic and Murray, and the 2-man game I think is just so effective. They know where the other one's going to be, and to try to rebuild that I think would be frustrating for Jokic. I'm sure he'd get there. He could do it with anybody, but I think if you delay it all, you're frustrating Jamal, you're frustrating Jokic, you're frustrating people you don't want to frustrate. So sign it, get that continuity going.
Yeah, so like I was debating it at first, just because I think something that we all want to see is Jamal come in healthy and motivated and in shape, stuff like that. And typically, like, you want to hold a contract over guys typically like that, like if you're a little more cutthroat, I guess. But like these guys said, man, Jamal's the best player for Jokic at the time. I mean, they've built that chemistry over the years, like Johnny was saying. And this is, like Deuce was saying, the Nuggets MO. We've always paid our guys. It's about loyalty, man, taking care of your people. So, yeah, I agree, man. We just got to get it signed and get him here.
Yeah, we all agree on that. And we have a question here from Joshua asking, is it possible we start the season with Jamal and Pickett and 1 or 2 empty roster spots? Well, the CBA says that you can have 1 empty roster spot. You can have either 14 or 15 guys on your regular roster spots. Actually, very expensive teams tend not to have the 15th guy, just to save a bit of money on luxury tax, and also to have a bit more flexibility going to the trade deadline. I don't remember the Nuggets doing that in recent history. I think they've had 15 guys in all of the last 5 or 6 seasons throughout the season. But we'll see. It is possible because they are getting more expensive every year. Okay, let's take one last short break, and then we'll try to figure out what's going to happen with the empty roster spots starting tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. We are back, and it is time to bring out the old presentation. Look at this wonderful picture. There are 5 guys on this, so this is a starting 5 that could win probably. I mean, we could win against Detroit, right? Like once, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
DaRon Holmes definitely glams us up in this starting five. But let's see what I came up with regarding the positions the Nuggets right now have. I did not put Vlatko on this list yet because he didn't sign a new contract yet. I did not put KCP in yet or at all. So right now, what we have is 4 guys I call veterans, and it's basically 4 guys that have played more than like, I don't know, 3,000 regular season minutes, something like that. So it's Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. Then we have 3 guys I call young, experienced guys, and those are Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, I can call him experienced, and Zeke Naji. I mean, not a great experience, but still experienced. 4 seasons in the NBA. And then we have 4 more guys that are practically rookies. Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, DaRon Holmes, and I think we can call Julian Strother a rookie as well because he didn't really have a real rookie season last season. He missed too much time. I think he played only for like 400 minutes last season. So when you look at this this graphic here, we see there are four empty spots there. What is your guys' prediction on how these 4 spots are gonna fill out? Let's start this time with Zamora.
Okay. So if you don't mind, Miroslav, I came up with a list of potential backup point guards.
By the way, before you begin, I just wanted to mention here, I put Peyton Watson here as a 3 and Hunter Tyson as a 3 because I don't want a log jam on 4. I only have DaRon Holmes and Aaron Gordon at the 4, and then Zeke Naji and Nikola Jokic at the 5. I want this team to be big. I don't want the guys to play up a position like they used to last season. Like, let's finally use the physicality of the guys we have. I mean, I'm not sure Malone is going to do that, but this would be a way for me to do it.
I agree. I like that philosophy too. I like going a little bigger, especially considering we just played the Timberwolves last, in the playoffs and stuff. And I think it'd be good practice to practice playing bigger lineups as opposed to smaller lineups, considering that. So, but I did come up with a list of potential point guards and a list of potential centers, if you want to listen to them. So they're going to go from, in my opinion, like the worst option to the best option. So I got Cam Payne, Ish Smith, Pat Bev, Spencer Dinwiddie, Killian Hayes, Patty Mills, Aaron Holiday, DeLon Wright, and Chris Dunn. So I think a lot of those guys, I don't know about any of them, a lot of those guys I think could fill in as that backup point guard. My favorite is Chris Dunn. I don't know if he'll be able to, if we'll afford him. I don't know what kind of contracts he's looking at. But if we could get Chris Dunn on a minimum, I think that'd be huge. I think that'd be really good. DeLon Wright, I think, would be a really good answer. Aaron Holiday played really well for Houston last year. I think he'd be really good here. Even Patty Mills, he was in his older age. I think just having a veteran there, because, Jalen Pickett might work out. I'm not a huge believer in Jalen Pickett myself, but, I think it'd be smart to have a veteran there just in case. That's the thing I don't really understand with the whole dumping Reggie Jackson thing is it seems like Booth is trying to handcuff Malone from playing veteran guys and play his guys. But at the same time, it would be irresponsible to go into the season with a second-round pick as your only backup point guard option. So this is, a list of guys I think they could look at.
But what would be your prediction? Like, which guy would you predict from that list to be there, considering that Calvin Booth really wants Jalen Pickett to work?
So somebody who would probably allow Pickett to play more. I would say maybe like Patty Mills would probably be the, around the general area of a guy who's like a little bit older, can provide some experience, but probably isn't going to be great for 82 games and in the playoffs and everything like that. So I think that's a pretty good target. We could probably afford him on a vet minimum. I think that'd be a good target. Maybe even Aaron Holiday. I think might be a better one.
Okay, before we go to the center, and you want to elaborate that, let's go to Deuce and talk about the shooting guard position. Deuce, do you think the Nuggets need to sign another shooting guard when you look at this list?
No, I mean, if you ask me, I think they're set at shooting guard. I mean, I don't want to steer the conversation. I think you just got to roll with the bigs. The bigs are going to suck. It is what it is. I mean, to me, they have to get a ball handler, period. I mean, Jamal Murray missed 30 games last year. If you're going to tell me Jalen Pickett's the one other ball handler on the roster, irresponsible, as Steve put it, is putting it lightly. You know what I mean? Like, to me, they have to bring a ball handler in, whether he's a combo guard or a point guard. I don't know. But if Reggie Jackson dump was just for salary relief, you know, I mean, Reggie Jackson isn't good, but it's a position of weakness. So I'm going to hope that they use that money to bring in a guy that can dribble the basketball, because there's like 2 on the roster. But to me, it's like big's going to suck. It's fine. Zeke Naji, backup center, whatever. You're paying him $8 million. You might as well play him. It is what it is. That's my opinion. Bring DeAndre back. Fine. You have to bring a ball handler in. I mean, whether it's trade, if it's a minimum, it's like that list is dark, man. I mean, I'm just going to be like, are those guys definitely better than Reggie Jackson? Like, Chris Dunn probably is, but like, we're splitting hairs. So I would hope for a solid solution at ball handler, just because I don't even hate Jalen Pickett. I kind of like Jalen Pickett, but if you just look at Jamal Murray's injury history, I feel like you need more ball handlers. And Julian Strawther and Christian Brown, I would say, are not combo guards. They are 2 guards. They're wings. So that's my take. There you
go. So Johnny, how would you deal with this point guard, shooting guard conundrum?
Yeah, I mean, I would love if Pickett and Strawther could come through. I do think that there's potential, you know, especially with Strawther, because I do think the way he plays is similar to Jamal, but I don't know if that's ideal from a less experienced player coming into the league, especially without a veteran ball handler behind him. You know, I think it was so nice with Monte. He wasn't dynamic, but you knew you could trust him to bring the ball up the court. You knew he could get into the offense when Jamal was not playing, or if Jokic wasn't out there to run through him. And so I think you need that person that you can trust. And, you know, like that list, there are some people, you know, I do think Chris Dunn would be great. I think defensively it'd be nice to have him out there, especially for moving Brown into the starting lineup. Up until last season, I would have loved to have Spencer Dinwiddie as a backup guard. But he looked awful last year. And especially, I mean, against the Nuggets in the playoffs with the Lakers, I mean, I felt great anytime he was on the court for the Lakers. But, you know, I think he, at his best, would be someone I wouldn't mind having as a veteran in there. But I don't know. It'll be interesting, you know, if we do lose KCP, you know, knowing that there's also some sign and trade opportunities out there. Maybe there's someone that we're not seeing that would be possible if we're having to do a sign and trade. But I agree. Just anybody that you can trust to bring the ball up the court would be huge for that bench unit, because they have a lot of versatility and a lot of different skills that I think could fit well together. But that's the one thing missing, is just that person to get him into the offense.
You mentioned Spencer Dinwiddie and a horrible season he's had last season. I have a funny story to share about him. When I had the chance to be courtside in Ball Arena for Game 2 against the Lakers, you see the guys warming up for the game, and everybody's hitting everything, like from every position. Even the worst shooters on the teams were hitting everything, except for Spencer Dinwiddie. He didn't hit anything. I don't know why. And it was Andy Bailey next to me. He told me, "Look at this guy. He's not going to hit anything." And he was right. So I don't know what happened with his shot. So guys, would you agree? Like, if we lose KCP, would you be fine with bringing back Justin Holiday as a shooting guard. Like he did play at that spot in several games this season. Would that be like a good enough solution? Because you don't have a lot of means to improve your roster.
Is that what because if we lose KCP, we're going to have the taxpayer mid-level exception. Is that what you would want to do with that?
Yeah, but not for the shooting guard. Like I would love to save that for the point guard.
Oh, okay.
Or possibly a backup center, but probably point guard. So just like a shooting guard, like plug a guy into this hole we have right now. Would Justin be would satisfy you guys as a solution there?
I would, just because of roster availability, I would want to focus on getting another big man, personally.
Yeah, we'll go there as well. At the point, at the power forward, we have one empty spot right now, and I think that's gonna be Vlatko Čančar. Pretty sure that's gonna happen. So no need to talk about it too much. Backup center, right now you can say Nikola Jokic is backed up with both DaRon Holmes and Zeke Nagy. We'll see if Calvin Woods really wants DaRon Holmes to play as a power forward, he might be able to convince Michael Malone to do it as well. Do you guys want to, what would be the kind of a backup center you would like to see here? And not but expect to see here starting tomorrow?
Honestly, I'd be like I said, I'd be fine bringing back DeAndre. The question we have with Malone and Booth's relationship and why it's essential they got to get on the same page is we don't want a championship potential roster sacrificing talent to play young guys or to bet on young guys. We want those young guys to earn those spots, or we want Malone and Booth to be on the same page and not sacrificing talent. So I think, in my opinion, would it be nice to sign Daniel Tice, for example, at a minimum? Yeah, I think it would, because I think he's better than Zeke Nagy. I think he's better than DeAndre Jordan. So I'd be interested in that. Obviously the question for us is if those two are on the same page. But personally, as far as I kind of feel like we have one more contributor move in us. For me, like I said, it would be point guard. I mean, backup big spot, I'm kind of okay accepting that it's just going to be a weakness for us. And can Zeke, Holmes, and DeAndre hold the backup center spot? Yeah, I'd be fine with that, assuming we brought in a contributor at the guard spot for the bench.
Johnny?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I think, it's interesting thinking about Holiday too. I think there's regular season moves and there's postseason moves. And ultimately the team has shown that they care more about the postseason. And I think they went a little too far this past year in that direction. But I think breaking the bank for a backup center who may not play a whole lot once you get to the playoffs, I think that's less of a priority, I think. And similarly to my thought on Holiday, I think I loved Holiday in the role he had this year. He could probably do a little bit more, but I worry that playing him too much in the regular season, you're going to lose the effectiveness we saw from him in the postseason too. So I think any of these moves need to have that. What are we going to need once we get to the playoffs too? And I think that's where that backup point guard is the priority. And I'm the same way. I think between Vlatko, Holmes, Zeke, Aaron Gordon, I mean, all those guys, especially playing together with someone tall like MPJ or Peyton Watson there, with some rim protection, athleticism too. To me, it's not a huge priority, but yeah, the Daniel Tice, I think there's other centers too that having some size there, even like DeAndre Jordan, just having someone who's big that can bother another team on occasion is not the worst thing in the world, but I'd agree it's not the priority with the other holes that we have right now.
So, Steve, you have a list of centers, I'm guessing.
Yes, I do. So, and like Dew said, it starts off dark,
Okay.
but as we go on, it gets better. So, the worst one that I can think of that might be able to contribute for Denver: Damian Jones, Cody Zeller, Bismack Biyombo, Lou Cornett, Mason Plumlee, Alex Len, Dario Saric, Xavier Tillman, Goga Batadze, and Andre Drummond. So I think any of those guys, like even Damian Jones, I think during the regular season could provide just relief, just as a big body if you're playing some bigger teams. What I've been trying to, put out there for a long time has been going and getting Goga Batadze from Orlando. He's like one of those analytic darlings that like a lot of teams just don't value, and he's a really good player. He's huge. He's a really big body. So like if we play one of these big teams, that's what I mean by when DaRon Holmes comes and can play that 4, you could play him next to Goga. Both of them are really good passers. Goga's a really good rebounder. When he started for Orlando was really good, even in the times when Wendell Carter Jr. was out, to the point where Wendell Carter Jr. is now disposable in Orlando. Like they're looking to move him and stuff because Goga played so well with that team. So I don't know if we'll be able to afford him because I think he is going to have a market. But if we could get somebody like that, I think that would be really good. But even like Dew said, like I don't think we need a massive upgrade at the backup center position. So like even a guy like a Luke Cornett, Mason Plumlee, Alex Len, a guy who could just come in and just not bleed 20-point leads when Jokic is sitting down. I think that's all we really need, and just some versatility. Play big if you're going against bigger teams, because as of right now, I have no confidence that if we're playing a bigger team and we have to go to a Zeke Naji and DaRon Holmes lineup, like that's just we're going to suffer for that. So I think it's just would be wise to bring in a big body for teams like Minnesota or any of these other big teams out there.
I would love Bismack Biyombo. I remember when he was playing for Phoenix recently, I was like, why can't we have such a guy off the bench, like a guy that can score in bunches, like look great against our backup unit?
Yeah.
Of course, Goga is a really good player. Goga is a former mega basket player. And I mean, I'm pretty sure the Nuggets could get him if they really wanted, because the agents and stuff like that. I'm not sure they're going to go that route. I would actually guess they're not going to bring in anybody to play the backup 5, because they're actually getting Holmes and getting Vlatko presumably back, on top of not getting rid of Zeke. And then you have Joker and AG and even Michael Porter. So yeah, I would actually guess they will not fill that position at all, and maybe start the season with 14 guys. But we'll see. What do I know?
Yeah.
Okay. This is all we prepared for you today, my dear listener. And please, for the love of God, take the word prepared loosely. I announced previously that this would be my last show before going for a summer break, but there is a better than 50% chance you'll get another Serbian Corner sometime midweek next week. And that would be the centenary episode 100, with some very special guests. Be on the lookout for that on Twitter. Or if you are not using Twitter, it will just show up on the YouTube channel. I'm hoping you're already subscribing to on your podcast thingy, where I'm almost certain you're subscribed at. So just go and follow Deuce and Johnny and Steve. Follow Steve's YouTube channel, Talking BS, Talking Bill Simmons. Right? This is what it means, right? It's a great channel. Breakdowns of all the NBA teams. So even if you want to get a peek of some other teams other than the Nuggets, you can get it there. Be well, be safe, be kind to everybody. Call your mom, and until next week, Malik Beasley.